Picture this. You're rushing through the grocery store parking lot after another exhausting 12-hour shift, and you see a little girl begging strangers for food. Your heart breaks, right? But what if that little girl was your daughter? I'm Serena Matthews, 28 years old, and I thought I knew everything about my 8-year-old daughter Willow. I work 2 jobs in our small Ohio town, morning shift at the diner on Main Street, evening shift cleaning offices downtown. Every penny goes toward rent, groceries, and making sure Willow has everything she needs. Have you ever worked so hard that you forgot to eat? That's my life. But I never, ever let my daughter go hungry. Last Tuesday changed everything. I was walking out of Murphy's Market, arms loaded with groceries for the week, when I heard a small voice that made my blood freeze. "Please, ma'am, can you spare some food? My mommy never feeds me." I dropped my bags right there on the concrete. Apples rolled everywhere. Because that voice belonged to Willow. My baby girl was sitting on the sidewalk, dirty dress, tears streaming down her face, holding out her tiny hands to complete strangers. An elderly woman was already reaching into her purse, her face twisted with concern and anger. "Sweetie, where is your mother?" the woman demanded, shooting disgusted looks around the parking lot. "Do you know someone whose world fell apart in a single moment? Mine just did." I ran toward them, my heart hammering so hard I could barely breathe. But before I could reach Willow, I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy boots on concrete. "Ma'am, we need to talk." I turned around to see Officer Rodriguez walking toward me, his hand resting on his radio, his eyes cold and suspicious. Behind him, more people had gathered. Neighbors I'd known for years. Parents from Willow's school. All staring at me like I was some kind of monster. The elderly woman was now kneeling beside Willow, wrapping her own jacket around my daughter's shoulders. "Don't worry, honey," she whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "We're going to make sure you get help." But here's what none of them knew. What I was about to discover would destroy everything I thought I understood about my own child. "Mrs. Matthews, your daughter has been telling people some very serious things." Officer Rodriguez's voice cut through the parking lot chatter like a knife. The crowd around us grew bigger. Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down shook her head in disgust. Tommy's mom from Willow's class pulled out her phone, probably recording everything. Have you ever been accused of something so horrible that you couldn't even form words to defend yourself? "There's been a mistake," I stammered, reaching for Willow. But she pulled away from me. Actually pulled away. From me. Her own mother. "Willow, baby, what are you doing? Why are you saying these things?" My daughter looked up at me with eyes I didn't recognize. Cold. Almost calculating. "You never make me breakfast, Mommy. You never pack my lunch. I'm always hungry." The lie hit me like a physical blow. Just this morning, I'd made her favorite chocolate chip pancakes shaped like hearts. I pack her lunch every single night after she goes to bed. Her lunchbox was probably still in her backpack at school, half the sandwich I'd made her still wrapped in the napkin I'd drawn a smiley face on. "That's not true, Willow. You know that's not true." Officer Rodriguez stepped closer. "Ma'am, we've received multiple reports over the past week. Your daughter has been asking teachers, classmates, even the school janitor for food, claiming she doesn't get meals at home." Multiple reports? Past week? My mind raced. When? How? I drop her off at school every morning, pick her up every afternoon. We eat dinner together every single night while watching her favorite cartoons. The elderly woman stood up, still clutching Willow protectively. "This poor child is skin and bones. Look at her. When's the last time she had a proper meal?" I wanted to scream. Willow wasn't skin and bones. She was perfectly healthy. Her doctor had just told me at her last checkup that she was growing beautifully. But looking at her now, sitting on that cold concrete, she did look smaller somehow. Frailier. Like she'd been shrinking right in front of me, and I'd been too busy working to notice. "I think we need to continue this conversation at the station," Officer Rodriguez said, reaching for his handcuffs. That's when Mrs. Chun from the Korean restaurant next to my diner pushed through the crowd. "Wait just 1 minute." She pointed a flour-covered finger at me. "Serena Matthews works harder than any parent I know. She comes in every morning at 5 a.m., never misses a shift, and talks about that little girl like she hung the moon. A murmur went through the crowd. Some people nodded. Others whispered to each other behind their hands. But Officer Rodriguez wasn't convinced. "Ma'am, I appreciate you wanting to defend your friend, but we have to take allegations of child neglect seriously." Child neglect. The words made me want to throw up. "I'm calling Child Protective Services," he continued, pulling out his phone. "They'll need to do a home visit, interview both of you separately." The world started spinning. CPS. Home visit. Interview. Do you know what it feels like when your life crumbles in front of a grocery store while strangers record it on their phones? But the worst part wasn't the crowd. It wasn't even the officer threatening to arrest me. It was the way Willow looked at me when she thought no one else was watching. Just for a split second, I saw something flash across her face. Something that looked almost like guilt. The CPS worker arrived at our apartment exactly 2 hours later. I'd spent those 2 hours scrubbing every surface, making sure Willow's room was perfect, rehearsing explanations that made me sound less crazy. Sandra Walsh looked exactly like what you'd picture a social worker to look like. Tired eyes, sensible shoes, a clipboard that might as well have been a weapon. "Mrs. Matthews, I need to inspect your home and speak with Willow privately." Have you ever had a stranger judge your entire life based on 20 minutes in your living room? She walked through our small apartment with the efficiency of someone who'd seen it all. Opened our refrigerator. Thank God I'd just gone grocery shopping. Checked Willow's bedroom. Bed made, toys organized, clothes clean and folded. "Your home appears adequate," she said, making notes. But appearances can be deceiving. I bit my tongue. Adequate. Our little apartment wasn't much, but it was clean and safe and filled with love. Willow's artwork covered the refrigerator. Her favorite stuffed elephant sat on her perfectly made bed. Her bookshelf overflowed with stories we'd read together every single night. "Can you show me what Willow typically eats?" I opened cabinets, pointing out cereals, pasta, her favorite crackers. Pulled out the lunch I'd already prepared for tomorrow: turkey sandwich, apple slices, string cheese, juice box. "You prepare lunch the night before?" "Every night, after she goes to bed." More notes. "And breakfast. We eat together every morning before I take her to school." What did she have this morning? Chocolate chip pancakes, shaped like hearts. My voice cracked a little. She loves when I make them special shapes. Sandra's pen stopped moving. She looked up at me, something shifting in her expression. "Mrs. Matthews, your daughter told her teacher this morning that she hadn't eaten since Sunday." The floor felt like it was tilting. "That's impossible. We had tacos last night. Tuesday is always taco night. We make them together. She helps me shred the cheese." "Can anyone verify these meals?" I thought desperately. "We eat alone, just the two of us. That's always been enough. That's always been perfect. My neighbor sometimes sees us cooking through the kitchen window. Mrs. Chun from the restaurant knows our routine." More scribbling. "I'd like to speak with Willow now. Alone." My heart clenched, but I nodded. "She's in her room." I sat in the living room, straining to hear their conversation through the thin walls. Mostly just murmurs. Then Willow's voice clearer. "Sometimes she forgets." Forgets? Forgets what? 20 minutes later, Sandra emerged with Willow trailing behind her. My daughter wouldn't look at me. "Mrs. Matthews, I'm going to be honest with you. Your home is clean, you're clearly providing adequate nutrition, but..." She paused, consulting her notes. "Willow seems confused about mealtimes. She's given inconsistent information about when and what she eats." Confused? My daughter was the smartest 8-year-old I knew. She could remember every detail of every Disney movie ever made, but she was confused about whether I fed her. "There won't be any immediate removal," Sandra continued, "but I'll need to schedule follow-up visits. And I strongly recommend counseling for Willow." After Sandra left, I knelt in front of my daughter. "Willow, baby, why did you tell people I don't feed you? You know that's not true." She fidgeted with her elephant's ear, still not meeting my eyes. "I don't know. Sweetheart, this is very serious. People think I'm a bad mommy now." Finally, she looked up. and what I saw in her eyes made my stomach drop to my toes. Maybe, she whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear her. Maybe someone told me to. Someone told her to? My own daughter? The words echoed in my head like a broken record player. I grabbed Willow's tiny shoulders, trying to keep my voice calm, even though my heart was beating like a drum. Baby, who told you to say those things? Who have you been talking to? She pulled away and ran to her room, slamming the door so hard our cheap apartment walls shook. Have you ever felt like your child was becoming a stranger right in front of your eyes? I followed her, knocking gently. Willow, sweetheart, please open the door. Mommy's not mad. I just need to understand. Through the thin door, I heard her crying. But not the usual 8-year-old crying. This was different. Scared.
Guilty.
I can't tell you, she sobbed. I promised I wouldn't tell. Promised who? My mind raced through every person in Willow's life. Her teacher, Mrs. Patterson, who'd been nothing but kind. The babysitter next door who watched her when I worked late, sweet old Mrs. Rodriguez who made the best cookies in the building. Then I remembered something that made my blood run cold. Last month, Willow had started asking weird questions. Mommy, do you think Daddy ever thinks about me? What would happen if Daddy came back? Would you be sad if I went to live somewhere else? I'd brush them off as normal kid curiosity. Every child with an absent parent wonders about them, right? But now, Willow, has someone been asking you questions about Daddy? The crying stopped. Complete silence. Baby, please. Has someone been talking to you about your father? I heard movement, then her little feet padding across the floor. The door opened just a crack. One red, swollen eye peeked out. He said you wouldn't understand. He said you'd be angry. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Who said that, baby? Who has been talking to you? She opened the door wider, clutching her stuffed elephant like a lifeline. The man who looks like me. The room started spinning. There was only one man who looked like Willow. One man who shared her dark hair, her green eyes, her stubborn little chin. Marcus. Her father. The man who walked out when she was 6 months old and never looked back. Willow, where did you see this man? When did you talk to him? She climbed onto her bed, pulling her knees to her chest. He comes to the playground sometimes. When you're working. He buys me ice cream and asks about you. Ice cream. Playground. While I was working my tail off to keep us afloat, Marcus was sneaking around, buying my daughter treats and filling her head with lies. How long has this been happening? Since the leaves started falling, she whispered. Since autumn. 2 months. He'd been manipulating my baby for 2 whole months. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part came when I asked my next question. What else did he tell you to do, Willow? She looked up at me with those big green eyes, his eyes, and said the words that changed everything. He said if I told everyone you were a bad mommy, I could come live with him and his new wife in their big house with a swimming pool. A swimming pool. Of course, he had a swimming pool now. Marcus Thompson, the man who couldn't even afford diapers when Willow was born, somehow had a big house and a new wife and enough money to buy ice cream bribes. Do you know what it feels like to discover your ex has been playing mind games with your child for months? I tucked Willow into bed early that night, my brain spinning with rage and disbelief. After she fell asleep, I did something I hadn't done in 8 years. I looked him up online. Marcus Thompson, Toledo, Ohio. And there he was, grinning at me from a Facebook profile I wasn't blocked from.
Suit and tie.
Perfect teeth. Wedding photos from last summer. Him and a blonde woman in an expensive dress standing in front of a mansion. The blonde woman looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. I scrolled through his posts. Vacation photos from Hawaii. Pictures of a brand new BMW. Check-ins at fancy restaurants that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. But not one single mention of having a daughter. The next morning, I called in sick to both my jobs. I had more important things to do than serve coffee and clean offices. I was going to follow my daughter. Have you ever felt like a detective in your own life? I dropped Willow off at school like normal, kissed her goodbye like normal, told her I loved her like normal. But instead of driving to work, I parked across the street and waited. Recess came at 10:30. I watched through my cracked windshield as kids poured out onto the playground. Willow went straight to the swings, just like always. Then I saw him. Marcus stood at the fence that separated the playground from the public park. He was older, graying at the temples, but still the same man who'd promised to love me forever and then disappeared the second things got hard. He waved at Willow. She waved back. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When the bell rang and kids ran back inside, Marcus didn't leave. He walked around to the main office. I waited 5 minutes, then followed him in. "Can I help you?" the secretary asked. "I'm here about my daughter, Willow Matthews. I believe someone just came in asking about her." The secretary's face went pale. "Oh my. Yes, a gentleman was just here. Said he was conducting a wellness check. Asked about her attendance, her behavior, whether she seemed well-fed." A wellness check. He was building a case against me using the school's own records. "What did you tell him?" "Just that Willow's been having some difficulties lately. Asking teachers for snacks, seeming distracted, emotional outbursts. We assumed it was related to the home situation we'd heard about." Home situation. News travels fast in small towns. I ran back to my car, hands shaking as I started the engine. I had to confront him. I had to end this. I followed him to a coffee shop downtown, the expensive one I could never afford. Through the window, I watched him sit across from the blonde woman from his wedding photos. That's when I realized why she looked familiar. Victoria Blackwood. The lawyer who'd handled my neighbor's messy divorce last year. The lawyer who'd gotten the husband full custody and left the wife with nothing. Marcus wasn't just planning to take my daughter. He'd hired the best family lawyer in the county to help him do it. Victoria Blackwood. Even her name sounded like money and power. I sat in my beat-up Honda, watching through the coffee shop window as Marcus and his lawyer wife planned my destruction. They had papers spread across their table, phones out, taking notes like they were planning a military invasion. Which, I guess, they were. Have you ever realized you were in a fight you didn't even know had started? I needed to hear what they were saying. Call it desperate. Call it crazy. But I had to know what I was up against. The coffee shop had outdoor seating, and their table was right by the window. If I walked past slowly enough, the CPS report should be enough, Victoria was saying as I pretended to check my phone near their table. Especially combined with the school documentation. Marcus stirred his fancy latte, the kind that costs more than I spend on lunch for a week. What about her work schedule? 2 jobs, never home. That's got to count for something. Abandonment through neglect. Very effective in custody cases. My blood turned to ice. Everything I'd done to provide for Willow, every double shift, every sacrifice, they were going to use it against me. "The child's clearly been coached," Victoria continued, "but she's young enough that the court will see it as genuine distress rather than manipulation."
Coached.
By them. By him. I wanted to storm over there, flip their table, scream the truth for everyone to hear. But I forced myself to keep walking, keep listening. "Timeline?" Marcus asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. I'll file the emergency custody petition Monday. Cite immediate danger to the child's well-being. Emergency custody. They were going to rip my daughter away from me in 2 weeks. I made it back to my car before I started shaking. Not just angry shaking, terrified, bone-deep shaking that made my teeth chatter. Marcus had 8 years to be a father. 8 years to send birthday cards, Christmas presents, child support. 8 years to show up. But he waited until now. Until I was vulnerable. Until he could swoop in and play hero while making me look like the villain. Do you know someone who's faced an enemy with unlimited resources while they had nothing? I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning with legal terms I barely understood. Emergency petitions. Custody hearings. Evidence of neglect. When I picked up Willow from school that afternoon, she was different again. Quiet. Watchful. "Mommy, are you okay? You look sad." I knelt down to her level in the school hallway. "Baby, I need you to tell me the truth about something. Has the man who looks like you, has he told you when you might go live with him?" She looked around nervously, like someone might be listening. "He said maybe soon. He said you might go away for a while, and he'd take care of me." Go away. Like I was the one abandoning her. Willow listened to me very carefully. I am never going away. I am never leaving you. Do you understand? She nodded, but I could see the confusion in her eyes. Poor baby didn't know who to believe anymore. That night, after she went to bed, I called the only lawyer I knew, Jake Morrison, who'd helped me with my divorce papers 8 years ago. His office was above the hardware store, and he mostly handled wills and property disputes. Serena? It's been a long time. What can I do for you? I told him everything. The begging incident, CPS, Marcus's return, Victoria Blackwood. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long, I thought he'd hung up. Jake? You still there? Yeah, I'm here. Serena, I'm going to be honest with you. Victoria Blackwood she's in a different league. Big city lawyer, unlimited budget, never lost a custody case. Never lost. Of course, she never lost. But you'll help me, right? You'll represent me? Another pause. I'll try. But Serena, you need to prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. And expensive. And there's a real chance. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. There was a real chance I was going to lose my daughter. But what Jake didn't know, what Marcus and Victoria didn't know, was that I'd already lost everything once before. And I'd learned something important from that experience. When you have nothing left to lose, you become very, very dangerous. Dangerous might have been the wrong word. Desperate was more accurate. By Friday morning, I had a plan. Not a good plan, maybe not even a legal plan, but it was something. I was going to document everything. Every lie Marcus told Willow. Every manipulation. Every promise he made that he'd never keep. Have you ever turned into someone you didn't recognize because someone threatened your child? I bought a small voice recorder with money I should have spent on groceries. Charged it overnight. Hid it in Willow's backpack Friday morning. Baby, I need you to do something for me. If the man who looks like you talks to you today, I want you to press this little button. I showed her the tiny record button. Can you do that for Mommy? She nodded solemnly, like I was giving her a secret mission. Which I guess I was. At recess, I parked across the street again and waited. Sure enough, Marcus appeared at the fence right on schedule. Through my binoculars, yes, I bought binoculars, I watched him wave Willow over. Watched him hand her something through the chain link. Watched them talk for 10 minutes while my heart pounded. When Willow came home that afternoon, the first thing I did was check the recorder. Did you press the button, sweetie? Yes, Mommy. Just like you said. I waited until she was in the bathroom, then hit play. Marcus's voice, clear as day. Your mommy's been telling people lies about me, hasn't she? Willow's small voice. I don't know. She probably said I left because I didn't love you. But that's not true, princess. I left because your mommy made me leave. She said mean things and hurt my feelings.
Lies.
Every word was a lie. But now I'm back, and I have a big house and a pool, and a new mommy for you. Would you like that? A new mommy who knows how to cook and won't forget to feed you. I won't forget to feed her, because I never forgot in the first place, you piece of. I force myself to keep listening. All you have to do is keep telling people how hungry you are at home. Keep telling them your real mommy doesn't take good care of you. Can you do that for Daddy? But Mommy does take care of me. She makes me heart pancakes. My eyes filled with tears. My brave, confused little girl, trying to defend me even while being manipulated. Sometimes people think they're taking care of us, but they're not doing it right, Marcus said smoothly. That's why other people have to help. Like the nice lady from the county who came to visit. He knew about Sandra. Of course he knew. The judge is going to ask you questions soon, princess. And when he does, I need you to tell him how hungry you are at home. How sad you are. How much you want to come live with Daddy in the big house.
Can you do that?
Will Mommy be sad? Mommy will understand. She'll be happy knowing you're somewhere better. The recording ended there. I sat in my kitchen, staring at that little device, and realized I was holding a bomb. Evidence of parental alienation. Proof of manipulation. Documentation of a father coaching his child to lie in court. But was it enough? Would Jake know how to use it? Would a judge even allow it as evidence? Do you know what it's like to have the smoking gun but not know if anyone will listen? I was so focused on the recorder that I almost missed the knock at my door. 3 sharp raps. Official sounding. I opened the door to find Sandra Walsh, the CPS worker, standing in my hallway with a folder in her hands and a grim expression on her face. "Mrs. Matthews, I need to speak with you immediately." My stomach dropped. "Is everything okay? Has something happened to Willow?" "We've received new information about your case." Disturbing information. She stepped into my living room without being invited. "Someone has filed a formal complaint alleging that you've been coaching Willow to lie to investigators." The world stopped spinning. Marcus had beaten me to it. While I was gathering evidence against him, he was telling authorities that I was the one manipulating my own daughter. And now, with that little voice recorder in my kitchen, I looked exactly as guilty as he wanted me to look. Coaching her. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it came out squeaky and defensive. "I would never." "Mrs. Matthews, please sit down." Sandra's tone had shifted from professional to suspicious. The person who called in this complaint provided very specific details. "Have you ever felt like someone was playing chess while you were playing checkers?" I sat on my couch, the same couch where Willow and I watched cartoons every night, and felt like I was sinking through the floor. "What kind of details?" Sandra opened her folder. "They claim you've been asking Willow to record conversations with other adults, that you've been teaching her what to say and what not to say to authority figures." My blood turned to ice. How could Marcus know about the recorder? Unless he'd found it. Unless he'd been expecting it all along. They also provided photos. She slid a glossy 8x10 across my coffee table. It showed me sitting in my car across from the school, binoculars in my hands, clearly watching the playground. "Can you explain why you were surveilling your daughter's school, Mrs. Matthews?" Surveilling? Like I was some kind of criminal instead of a mother trying to protect her child. I was watching her play. I was worried about her behavior changes. With binoculars? Another photo. This one showed me following Marcus into the coffee shop downtown. And this one, my mouth went dry. In the picture, I was clearly trying to eavesdrop on Marcus and Victoria's conversation. I looked exactly like what I was, desperate and sneaky. "Mrs. Matthews, I'm going to ask you directly. Have you been coaching Willow about what to say regarding her home life?" The truth stuck in my throat. Because technically, yes. I had asked her to record Marcus. I had told her to press that button. But not to lie. Never to lie. "I've been trying to find out who is telling her to lie to people," I said carefully. "So, you admit you've been investigating this situation on your own?" Every word I said was being twisted against me. This was exactly what Marcus wanted. "Where is Willow now?"
Sandra asked.
"In her room, doing homework. I need to speak with her. Alone. Again." 20 minutes later, Sandra emerged from Willow's room looking grim. "Mrs. Matthews, Willow told me you've been asking her lots of questions about a bad man at the playground. She said you gave her something to hide in her backpack." I wanted to scream. Marcus had coached Willow so well that she was now accidentally telling the truth in a way that made me look guilty. "She also said you've been crying a lot lately and acting scared." Of course I'd been crying. Of course I'd been scared. I was about to lose my daughter to a man who'd abandoned us both. But apparently, even my fear was being used against me. "Mrs. Matthews, I'm going to have to file an emergency report. The behavior you're exhibiting, the surveillance, the coaching, the emotional instability, it's concerning." Emergency report. The same words Victoria had used in the coffee shop. What does that mean? It means Willow will need to be placed in temporary protective custody while we sort this out. The room started spinning. "You're taking her away?" "Just temporarily. Until we can determine what's really going on here." But we both knew the truth. Once they took Willow away, once Marcus got temporary custody, I'd never get her back. "Please," I whispered. "Please don't take my daughter. She's all I have." Sandra's face softened for just a moment. "Mrs. Matthews, I believe you love Willow. But love isn't always enough. Sometimes parents make poor choices when they're desperate." She was right about one thing. I was desperate. But she was wrong about everything else. And I was about to prove it. "You have 30 minutes to pack Willow's things." 30 minutes. 8 years of bedtime stories, homemade lunches, scrape-knee kisses, and Christmas mornings, all reduced to whatever could fit in a suitcase in 30 minutes. Do you know what it sounds like when your world ends? It sounds like your 8-year-old daughter asking why strangers are taking her away from the only home she's ever known. "Mommy, I don't want to go," Willow cried, clinging to my legs as I packed her favorite clothes with shaking hands. "I know, baby. I know." I knelt down and hugged her tight, breathing in her strawberry shampoo smell, trying to memorize everything about this moment. But it's only for a little while. "Are you in trouble because of the recording thing?" My heart stopped. "What recording thing, sweetheart?" "The man who looks like me said you might try to record him talking to me. He said if that happened, the police would take me away, because recording people is against the law." He'd known. Marcus had known exactly what I would do and planned for it. "Willow, listen to me very carefully." I gripped her small shoulders. "The man who looks like you is not telling the truth. He's been lying to you about everything. But he's my daddy. Being a daddy isn't just about having the same eyes or the same nose. Being a daddy means being there when you're sick, being there for your birthday parties, being there every single day." Have you ever tried to explain betrayal to a child who still believes in fairy tales? Sandra appeared in the doorway. "Time's up, Mrs. Matthews." I zipped up Willow's suitcase and handed her the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was a baby. "Remember what Mommy always tells you before bed." "I love you to the moon and back," Willow whispered. "That's right. And no matter where you go, no matter what anyone tells you, that will always be true." They took her then. My beautiful, confused little girl who still believed her daddy was going to save her from her terrible mother. I stood in my empty apartment and listened to the echo of her footsteps disappearing down the hallway. Then I called Jake. "They took her," I said when he answered. "Serena? What happened?" I told him about the recorder, the photos, Sandra's emergency report, about Marcus being 10 steps ahead of me at every turn. "This is bad," Jake said finally. "Really bad. Emergency custody usually leads to permanent placement, especially when there's evidence of parental coaching." But I wasn't coaching her to lie. I was trying to prove he was coaching her to lie. The court won't see the difference. All they'll see is a mother who is secretly recording conversations and following people around with binoculars. I sank into my couch, the same couch where Willow and I had eaten countless dinners while watching her favorite shows. "Jake, there's something else. Something I found out about Marcus." "What?" "He's been planning this for months. He hired Victoria Blackwood. You know who she is, right?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Yeah, I know who she is. Serena, Victoria Blackwood doesn't just win custody cases. She destroys the opposing parent completely." "What do you mean?" "I mean she doesn't stop at taking your kid. She'll go after your job, your reputation, your housing. She'll make sure you're so broken that even if you somehow got another chance, you'd be in no position to take it." The room felt like it was closing in on me. "But there's got to be something we can do. Some way to fight back." "There might be," Jake said slowly. "But Serena, what I'm thinking of, it's risky. If it backfires, you could lose Willow forever." "I've already lost her." "No, you haven't. Not yet. Emergency custody isn't permanent custody." "Then what are you thinking?" Jake took a deep breath. "We investigate Victoria Blackwood. Everyone has secrets, even lawyers. If we can find something, anything, that shows she's not the perfect stepmom she pretends to be." He didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. If we could prove Victoria was unfit, Marcus would lose his perfect setup. His big house and swimming pool wouldn't matter if his wife had skeletons in her closet. How do we do that? Very carefully. And probably illegally. I thought about Willow, scared and confused in some foster home, wondering why her mommy had let the bad people take her away. "Jake," I said, "I don't care about legal anymore." 48 hours later, I was sitting in Jake's cramped office above the hardware store, staring at a pile of documents that made my stomach turn. Victoria Blackwood wasn't just any lawyer. She was a specialist in high-conflict custody cases, and her track record was terrifying. "Look at this," Jake said, pointing to a newspaper clipping from 3 years ago. She represented a father in Cincinnati who wanted custody of his daughter. The mother ended up homeless, jobless, and never saw her kid again. Have you ever realized you're fighting someone who destroys families for a living? And this one from last year, Jake continued. Mother lost custody after Victoria proved she was emotionally unstable. Turns out the woman was just grieving her own mother's death. I flipped through more cases. Pattern after pattern of mothers losing everything while fathers with money and new wives walked away with the children. She's good at what she does, I said grimly. Too good. Which is why I started digging deeper. Jake pulled out a thick folder I hadn't noticed before. Victoria Blackwood, age 34, originally from Michigan. Law degree from Northwestern. Married Marcus Thompson last July. I already know all this. But did you know she was married before? Twice. My head snapped up. What? First marriage lasted 6 months. Husband filed for divorce citing irreconcilable differences. Second marriage lasted 2 years. What happened to the second husband? Jake's expression darkened. That's where it gets interesting. He had a daughter from a previous relationship. 8 years old when Victoria married him. The same age as Willow. During their custody battle, and yes, there was a custody battle, the little girl made some very serious accusations against Victoria. My hands started shaking. What kind of accusations? Emotional abuse. Manipulation. The child claimed Victoria told her that her real mother didn't love her anymore, and that's why she'd remarried. The room went silent except for the tick of Jake's old clock on the wall. What happened to the case? It disappeared. Records sealed. The ex-husband suddenly dropped all accusations and agreed to Victoria having full step-parent rights. Someone paid him off. That's what I think. But here's the thing, Serena. The little girl's name was Emma Rodriguez. And 3 months after the custody case ended, she was hospitalized. My blood turned to ice. For what? Anxiety disorder, so severe she couldn't eat.
Couldn't sleep.
The hospital records list the cause as extreme psychological stress from family situation. I stared at the hospital report, trying to process what I was reading. Victoria had done this before. She'd manipulated a child, isolated her from her real mother, and caused so much psychological damage that the kid ended up in the hospital. Where is Emma now? That's the problem. After she got out of the hospital, the family moved, changed their names, completely disappeared from public records. So, we can't find them. I didn't say that. Jake pulled out one more document, a current address in Michigan. Emma Rodriguez is now Emma Martinez. She's 15 years old, and according to my sources, she still has nightmares about her stepmother. Do you know what hope feels like when you've given up on everything? Jake, if we can get Emma to talk, if we can get her to testify about what Victoria did to her, it would blow their case apart. Show a pattern of child manipulation and abuse. Can we contact her? We can try. But Serena, there's something else you need to know. I braced myself for more bad news. I got a call this morning. The emergency custody hearing is scheduled for Monday. 3 days from now. 3 days. If we couldn't find Emma and convince her to help us in 3 days, Willow would be placed permanently with Marcus and Victoria. We have to go to Michigan, I said. Serena, that's a 12-hour drive. And there's no guarantee Emma will talk to us. She might not even remember everything clearly. Trauma can affect memory. She'll remember Victoria. Trust me, kids always remember the people who hurt them. Jake nodded slowly. Okay, but if we do this, we're going all in. No backup plan. I thought about Willow, probably crying herself to sleep in some stranger's house, wondering why her mommy wasn't coming to save her. Then we go all in. But neither of us knew that while we were planning our trip to Michigan, Victoria was planning something much worse. Something that would change everything. The call came at 2 a.m. I jerked awake from the first real sleep I'd had since they took Willow, my phone buzzing like an angry wasp on my nightstand. Unknown number. Hello. Serena Matthews? The voice was cold, professional, female. Yes, who is this? This is Victoria Blackwood. I believe you know who I am. Have you ever had your worst enemy call you in the middle of the night? I sat up straight, instantly wide awake. What do you want? I want to offer you a deal. A deal. From the woman who specialized in destroying mothers like me. I'm listening. You drop all custody claims to Willow. Sign over your parental rights voluntarily. In exchange, I won't pursue the criminal charges I'm considering filing against you. My hand gripped the phone so tight I thought it might crack. What criminal charges? Stalking, harassment, child endangerment through emotional manipulation, recording conversations without consent. Her voice was smooth as silk and twice as dangerous. I have photographs, Mrs. Matthews. I have witness statements. I have enough evidence to make sure you spend the next few years in prison instead of fighting for a daughter who doesn't even want to see you anymore. That last part hit like a physical blow. You're lying. Am I? Let me read you something. I heard papers rustling. This is from Willow's interview with the child psychologist yesterday. Quote, I don't want to go home to mommy. She makes me do bad things and lie to people. I want to stay with daddy in the big house. End quote. The room started spinning. My own daughter turned against me so completely that she was choosing them over me. You coached her to say that. Did I? Or did you push an 8-year-old so far that she finally told the truth about what life with you is really like? I wanted to scream, to throw the phone against the wall, to drive to wherever they were keeping my daughter and take her home. But I forced myself to think. Victoria was calling me at 2 a.m., which meant she was worried. People who are winning don't make desperate phone calls in the middle of the night. If your case is so strong, why are you offering me a deal? Silence on the other end of the line. Maybe, I continued, finding my courage, you're not as confident as you pretend to be. Mrs. Matthews, you're a single mother who works 2 minimum wage jobs and lives in a crappy apartment. I'm a successful lawyer married to a man who can provide Willow with everything she could ever want. Who do you think the court is going to choose? Do you know what it sounds like when someone threatens to take away the only thing that matters to you? But here's what you don't know about me, Victoria. I've already lost everything once. 8 years ago, when Marcus left, I had nothing. No job, no money, no support system. Just a baby who needed me to figure it out. Your point. My point is that when you have nothing left to lose, you stop being afraid of powerful people. I could practically hear her teeth grinding through the phone. You have 24 hours to consider my offer, Mrs. Matthews. After that, I file the criminal charges and make sure you lose your daughter and your freedom. The line went dead. I sat in my dark apartment, staring at my phone, and realized something important. Victoria wasn't just worried about our case. She was terrified, which meant Jake and I were on the right track with Emma Martinez. But it also meant Victoria was about to escalate this war to a level I wasn't prepared for. I tried calling Jake, but it went straight to voicemail. Probably asleep, like normal people at 2 a.m. So, I did something I hadn't done since I was Willow's age. I called my mom. Serena? Honey, what's wrong? Mom's voice was thick with sleep, but alert. Moms never really stop being moms, even at 2 in the morning. I told her everything. The whole story, from start to finish. When I was done, there was a long silence. Baby girl, Mom said finally. You know I love you, right?
Yeah, Mom.
I know. Then you know I'm going to say what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. My stomach clenched. You're going to lose this fight if you keep playing by their rules. What do you mean? I mean Victoria and Marcus have money, connections, and no conscience. You have love and determination. In a fair fight, love wins. But this isn't a fair fight. So what do? You make it fair.
How?
By being smarter than them. By finding the one thing they can't buy, can't manipulate, and can't make disappear. Which is? The truth, baby. The real truth. Not the version they've created, but the truth that cuts so deep they can't spin it. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen and thought about Emma Martinez, a 15-year-old girl in Michigan who might be the key to saving my daughter. But I also thought about Victoria's threat. Criminal charges. Prison. If I went to Michigan and it didn't work, I wouldn't just lose Willow. I'd lose everything. But if I didn't go, I'd definitely lose her. Sometimes the only choice is between a terrible risk and certain defeat. I chose the risk. 12 hours later, Jake and I were on Interstate 75, driving through the flat farmlands of Ohio toward Michigan with nothing but hope and a cooler full of gas station coffee. Tell me again why a 15-year-old girl is going to save us, Jake said, adjusting his rearview mirror for the 100th time. Because Victoria made one mistake, I replied, staring out at the endless cornfields. She hurt a child before, and children remember everything. Do you know what desperation smells like? It smells like stale coffee and the fierce sweat of two people who know they're probably driving toward their own destruction. We found Emma Martinez's house just after sunset, a small ranch home in a quiet neighborhood outside Detroit. Normal looking. The kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. Jake parked across the street. How do we approach this? We can't just knock on the door and say, "Hi, we're strangers from Ohio who want to ask your traumatized teenager about her abusive stepmother." We tell them the truth. The truth. That Victoria is about to do to another little girl what she did to Emma. And that Emma might be the only person who can stop her. The woman who answered the door looked tired in the way that mothers of troubled teenagers always look tired. Dark circles under her eyes, worry lines around her mouth. "Can I help you, Mrs. Martinez? My name is Serena Matthews, and this is my lawyer, Jake Morrison. We drove here from Ohio because we desperately need your daughter's help." She started to close the door, but I kept talking. "Victoria Blackwood is trying to take my 8-year-old daughter away from me. The same Victoria Blackwood who was married to Emma's stepfather." Mrs. Martinez's face went white. "How do you know about that?" "Because she's doing the same things to my daughter that she did to Emma. The manipulation, the lies, turning a child against her own mother." Mrs. Martinez looked over her shoulder into the house, then stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "Emma doesn't talk about that time. She's been in therapy for 3 years. She's finally starting to sleep through the night again." "I understand," I said gently. "But Mrs. Martinez, if Emma doesn't help us, Victoria is going to destroy another family. Another little girl is going to go through what Emma went through. Emma can't testify. She's a minor, and bringing up that trauma again." She shook her head. "I won't put my daughter through that."
My heart sank.
We'd driven 12 hours for nothing. Then a voice came from behind the front door. "Mom? Who are you talking to?" The door opened, and I saw Emma Martinez for the first time. 15 years old, with intelligent dark eyes and the guarded posture of someone who'd learned not to trust adults too quickly. "Nobody, Mija. Go back inside." "Is this about Victoria?" Emma asked, stepping onto the porch. The silence stretched between us like a live wire. "You know Victoria Blackwood?" I asked carefully. "I know she ruins families," Emma said simply. "I know she turns kids against their real parents by making them think love means getting stuff." Mrs. Martinez put her arm around her daughter. "Emma, you don't have to." "Yes, I do," Emma interrupted. "Because if I don't, she's going to keep doing it to other kids. Have you ever met a 15-year-old who is braver than most adults?" Emma looked me straight in the eye. "What's your daughter's name?" "Willow. She's 8. Same age I was." Emma's jaw tightened. "Victoria told me my mom didn't really love me. That's why she got remarried. She said real mothers fight for their kids, and since my mom wasn't fighting, she must not care." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. Because that's exactly what Willow was probably thinking right now. "Will you help us?"
I asked.
Emma looked at her mother, then back at me. "I'll do more than help you. I'm going to make sure Victoria Blackwood never hurts another kid again." But we had no idea that Victoria was already one step ahead of us. While we were talking to Emma on that porch in Michigan, Victoria was in an Ohio courtroom filing an emergency motion. By morning, there would be a warrant out for my arrest. The call came at 6 a.m. while Emma and I were sitting at her kitchen table, going over her testimony. Jake's voice was tight with panic. "Serena, where are you?" "At Emma's house." "Why?" "You need to get back to Ohio immediately. Victoria filed criminal charges last night. There's a warrant out for your arrest." The coffee cup slipped from my hands and shattered on the kitchen floor. What charges? Kidnapping. Kidnapping? I didn't kidnap anyone. She's claiming you took Willow out of state without permission and are now interfering with the custody investigation by fleeing to Michigan. Have you ever felt like someone was rewriting your life story while you were living it? Mrs. Martinez grabbed a towel and started cleaning up the coffee. Emma just stared at me with those wise, sad eyes. They're coming for you, aren't they? Emma said quietly. Serena, listen to me, Jake continued. You need to turn yourself in. If they arrest you in Michigan, it becomes a federal case. Much worse. But the hearing is in 6 hours. I can try to delay, but without you here, without me there, Marcus and Victoria would get temporary custody, then permanent custody. Then Willow would disappear into their perfect life, and I'd never see her again. I'm coming back. Serena, if you come back, you're going to be arrested the moment you set foot in Ohio. Then I'll be arrested. Emma stood up. Not without me, you won't. Emma, no, her mother said. This is too dangerous. Mom, they're going to take that little girl away from her real mom, just like Victoria tried to take me away from you. I can't let that happen. Mrs. Martinez looked at her daughter, really looked at her, and I saw the moment when she realized Emma wasn't a traumatized little girl anymore. She was a 15-year-old who'd survived hell and come out stronger. If you testify, Mrs. Martinez said slowly, Victoria will try to destroy you too. Let her try. Do you know what courage looks like? It looks like a teenager deciding to face her worst nightmare to save a stranger's child. We made it back to Ohio in record time. Jake had called ahead and arranged for us to surrender at the courthouse instead of being arrested on the highway like criminals. The scene outside the family court building looked like something from a movie. News vans, reporters, crowds of people holding signs. Some of the signs said, "Justice for Willow." Others said, "Save our children from false accusations." Apparently, word had gotten out about the case. Social media had picked it up. Hashtag Willow Matthews was trending. How did this become such a big deal? I asked Jake as we pushed through the crowd. Mrs. Chun from your diner posted about it on Facebook. It went viral. People are angry about what's happening to you. People were angry. Strangers were angry on my behalf. After weeks of feeling completely alone, the support was overwhelming. But the most overwhelming thing was what happened when we walked into that courtroom. Willow was there. My baby girl, sitting between Marcus and Victoria like she belonged to them. She was wearing a dress I'd never seen before, expensive, with little pearls on the collar. Her hair was in perfect curls. She looked like a different child, like their child. When she saw me, she didn't run to me like she used to. She just stared with those confused green eyes, and I could see Victoria's poison working behind them. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Walsh. Judge Walsh, Sandra's last name. Of course. In a town this small, everyone was connected to everyone. Judge Walsh was a stern-looking woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. This is an unusual case, she began. Emergency custody, criminal charges, and now what appears to be a media circus outside my courtroom. Victoria stood up, every inch the professional in her designer suit. Your Honor, we request that the media attention not influence these proceedings. This is about the welfare of one child, not public opinion. Agreed, Judge Walsh said. Now, Mrs. Blackwood, I understand you've filed criminal charges against Mrs. Matthews? Yes, Your Honor. Kidnapping, interference with custody proceedings, and child endangerment. Judge Walsh looked at me. Mrs. Matthews, how do you plead? Jake squeezed my shoulder and whispered, not guilty. But before I could answer, Emma Martinez stood up in the gallery. Your Honor, may I speak? The courtroom went dead silent. Young lady, this is not the time, Victoria began. Actually, Judge Walsh said, studying Emma with interest, I'd like to hear what you have to say. Emma walked to the front of the courtroom, past Marcus and Victoria, past Willow, and stopped right in front of the judge's bench. My name is Emma Martinez. I'm 15 years old. And Victoria Blackwood tried to steal me from my real mother too. You could have heard a pin drop in that courtroom. Victoria shot to her feet. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. This child has no standing in these proceedings. Sit down, Mrs. Blackwood, Judge Walsh said sharply. Miss Martinez, please continue. Emma's voice was steady, but I could see her hands shaking as she spoke. When I was 8 years old, my mom remarried. My stepdad brought Victoria into our lives, and she seemed nice at first. She bought me presents, took me shopping, told me how pretty I was. Have you ever watched a child find the courage to tell a truth that adults didn't want to hear? But then she started saying things about my real mom. Little things at first, like how my mom didn't know how to do my hair right, or how she bought me cheap clothes instead of nice ones. Willow was staring at Emma now, her confusion obvious. Then Victoria started telling me that my mom didn't really love me. She said if my mom really cared, she would have married someone rich who could give me everything I wanted. I saw Marcus shifting uncomfortably in his seat. She told me that if I wanted to stay in the big house with the pool and all the nice things, I had to choose. I couldn't love both my moms. I had to pick the one who could take better care of me. Emma's voice cracked slightly. I was 8 years old. I thought love meant getting stuff. Judge Walsh leaned forward. What happened next, Miss Martinez? I started being mean to my real mom. I told her Victoria was better at everything. I said I wanted to live with Victoria and my stepdad full-time. The courtroom was so quiet, I could hear the air conditioning humming. My real mom cried a lot. She tried to explain that love isn't about money or big houses or swimming pools. But I was too little to understand. All I knew was that Victoria made me feel special and important. Emma wiped her eyes. Then one day, my mom came to pick me up for her weekend, and I told her I didn't want to go. I said Victoria was my real mom now. I felt tears streaming down my face. This was exactly what Victoria was doing to Willow. My real mom fought for me in court, just like Mrs. Matthews is fighting for Willow. But she lost because Victoria is a lawyer and she knew exactly what to say to make my mom look bad. And what happened after that? Judge Walsh asked gently. Emma's voice dropped to almost a whisper. I got my wish. I got to stay in the big house with all the nice things. But Victoria wasn't nice anymore once she didn't have to pretend. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. She told me my real mom had signed papers giving me away because she didn't want me anymore. She said I belonged to them now, and I should stop crying about it. Victoria was pale as a sheet, her composure finally cracking. When I tried to call my real mom, Victoria said I was being ungrateful. When I asked to visit her, Victoria said I was being disloyal. When I cried at night because I missed her, Victoria said I was being a baby. Emma turned to look directly at Victoria. You made me hate myself for loving my real mom. You made me think wanting my real mom meant I was broken. Judge Walsh's expression had turned thunderous. Miss Martinez, did Mrs. Blackwood ever threaten you? She said if I ever told anyone about being unhappy, they would send me to live with strangers who would be even meaner. She said my real mom had moved away and forgotten about me. But that wasn't true?
No.
My real mom had been looking for me the whole time. She hired lawyers, posted on social media, never stopped trying to find me. When my stepdad finally divorced Victoria, he told my mom where I was. Emma turned to look at Willow, who was staring at her with wide eyes. Willow, your real mom never stopped loving you. Even when you're mad at her. Even when other people tell you she's bad. Even when you think you want to live somewhere else. Do you know what it looks like when an 8-year-old realizes she's been lied to? Willow's face crumpled. She looked at Marcus, then at Victoria, then at me. Mommy, she whispered. Before anyone could stop her, she jumped up and ran across the courtroom straight into my arms. I'm sorry, Mommy. I'm sorry I said those mean things. I don't want to live in the big house. I want to come home. I held my daughter tight, feeling her heart beating against my chest, smelling her strawberry shampoo, and realized we'd won. But Judge Walsh wasn't finished. Mrs. Blackwood, I'm ordering an immediate investigation into your previous custody cases. Mr. Thompson, you're free to pursue visitation rights through the proper channels, but you will have no contact with this child without supervision until further notice.
She looked at me.
Mrs. Matthews, the criminal charges are dismissed. Your daughter will be returned to your custody immediately. As the courtroom erupted in cheers from the gallery, I saw Victoria whisper something urgent to Marcus. Whatever she said made his face go white. Their perfect plan was falling apart. But I had no idea that Victoria's next move would be more desperate than anything she'd done before. 6 months later, I was standing in the kitchen of our new apartment, bigger than the old one, with a window that looked out onto a playground where Willow could play safely, when the news broke on TV. Former attorney Victoria Blackwood was sentenced today to 5 years in prison for multiple counts of child endangerment and conspiracy to commit fraud. Willow looked up from her homework at the kitchen table. Mommy, is that the mean lady? That's her baby. The news anchor continued. The investigation, sparked by testimony from 15-year-old Emma Martinez, uncovered a pattern of child manipulation spanning multiple custody cases over 7 years. At least 12 families have come forward with similar stories. 12 families. Victoria had destroyed 12 families before we stopped her. Do you know what justice feels like? It feels like knowing other children won't go through what Willow and Emma went through. Marcus had disappeared after the trial. Last I heard, he'd moved to Florida and was selling used cars. Victoria's conviction had ruined his reputation, cost him his job, and ended his dreams of playing happy family with my daughter. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I'll get it, Willow yelled, running to the door. Check the peephole first, I called after her. Old habits. It's Emma. Emma Martinez had become a regular visitor over the past few months. She and her mom had driven down from Michigan 3 times to check on us and make sure we were okay. But this visit was special. Guess what? Emma said, bouncing into our living room with a big smile on her face. What? I'm starting a support group for kids who've been through parental alienation. The court system is going to help us reach other families. Emma had turned her trauma into a mission. At 16, she was already helping other kids understand that manipulation isn't love, that real parents don't disappear just because someone says they do. That's amazing, Emma. And I have something for you. She handed me a thick envelope. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. From parents who'd seen our story on the news, who'd been fighting similar battles, who'd won or lost their own custody wars. They all wanted to thank you, Emma said, for being brave enough to fight, for showing other parents that they're not alone. I read through some of the letters, tears blurring my vision. Mrs. Matthews, your story gave me hope when I thought I'd lost everything. Thank you for proving that love is stronger than money. Because of you, I didn't give up on my son. Have you ever realized that your worst nightmare became someone else's salvation? That evening, after Emma had gone home and Willow was asleep, I sat on our couch and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I was just a single mom working 2 jobs and trying to give my daughter the best life I could. I never asked to become some kind of symbol or inspiration. But sometimes life chooses you for things you never expected. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. New client. Single dad. Ex-wife hired a lawyer who specializes in high-conflict custody cases. Sound familiar? I smiled and texted back. We'll take the case. Because here's what I learned from fighting Victoria Blackwood and winning my daughter back. When someone tries to destroy your family with lies and manipulation, you don't fight them by playing their game. You fight them with the truth. You fight them with courage. You fight them with the love that never gives up, never surrenders, and never lets go. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you find other people who've been through the same battle. People like Emma, who turn their scars into strength. People like the parents in those letters, who refuse to let the bad guys win. Willow appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Mommy, I had a bad dream. Come here, baby. She climbed onto the couch next to me, and I wrapped my arms around her. What was the dream about? I dreamed you went away and left me with strangers. That will never happen, Willow. Never. Promise. I promise. I love you to the moon and back, remember? And back again, she finished, our nightly ritual restored. As I tucked her back into bed, I thought about all the children out there who were being told their parents didn't love them. All the parents fighting impossible battles against people with more money and fewer morals. Tomorrow, Jake and I would start helping the next family. Tonight, I was just grateful to be home with my daughter, where we both belonged. Because at the end of the day, that's what this whole story was about. Love, family, home, and the lengths a mother will go to protect what matters most.